Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate, with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Harry Samby. Harry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a husband, father, and real estate entrepreneur. I have a beautiful wife and two wonderful children. My elder one, he's going to be 5 in July, and younger one is really young, 3 months old.
Wow.
Yeah. So Harry's been busy. So born in India. Yeah, I was born in India, and then I degree in chemical engineering, and then I moved to England to do my further education, and I graduated from University of Sheffield with my postgraduation. And then right after that, I decided to move to Canada. And and then I picked up a job as an environmental specialist. And then now I'm doing business development for an environmental firm. So by education, I'm an engineer. And by passion, I'm a real estate entrepreneur. In terms of real estate, we bought our first property in the year 2009. We moved here in 2008.
Yep.
And since then, I've been involved in different projects such buy, fix, and hold, some rent-to-own, student rentals, the duplex conversions, like Burr projects. Also, I was involved with land severance. There was one project which was completed, land severance. And recently, we acquired a multifamily under our belt as well. So for all these projects, we worked as a joint ventures as well.
Yeah.
Worked with joint ventures on various deals. So I've been on the both sides of the table. I've been a venturer with other people, and other people has ventured with us as well. So I'm very passionate about real estate. That's why I do what I do.
Oh my goodness, there's so much stuff to talk about. There's so many different directions we could go with this. I know we were talking beforehand, and we were thinking we would start with talking about some severance and maybe some multifamily. So let's talk about your severance. How does that work? And let's go over the procedure to do a land severance.
Sure. That project is very special, where I used 3 strategies actually. So in 3 words is option, severance, and Burr. So I've used all 3 with one project. Yeah. So the owner actually he has a troubled tenant who was not paying the rent.
Yeah.
And the basement was flooded as well. So the asset was deteriorating, and there was no money coming in. And owner was kind of in a distress situation where I took over the project. So I offered option to purchase that house. So so that was $1,000 as an option deposit I offered to the seller, and I took control over the property in the month of February in that year.
Yeah.
But I closed on the property in May under my name. So since February, I had control over the property. So the thing which I did was the waterproof the basement, and then started working with the tenant. So it was like $2,000 per month rent. So we were behind, he was behind almost 10 months.
Oh.
And then the owner wants to move on, so he got his own price. So he was happy with my option, and I took control over the property, and then started working with the tenant. And in the meantime, I realized that we were sitting on a double lot. It was a big lot, So I initiated conversation with the city, and through some consultation meeting, I came to know that we can divide that lot. So there was a huge process, a very long process, as it depends on various different cities, where your house is situated.
Is there a way to to know that ahead of time, or is it just sort of you had that property and looked into what it had for options, or if someone was going to try and find something like this? Would there be a way to like trigger it, like a certain zoning or certain anything that would, or just a large lot? What things would you look for?
I would say the large lot, especially corner lots, which has a huge frontage, so you don't want to end up in some landlocked, a lot.
Yes.
So corner lots are great, corner lot and the bigger ones, So you nowadays, I think you can get most of the cities, they have online maps, where you can browse through the maps and you can see, where the building is situated.
Cool. Another question. So you put the option on the property, got it locked up, and then you went and did some waterproofing and got rid of the tenant, fixed some of the problems. Whenever you went to close this property in the fall, were you able to, was the appraisal higher than what your contract option was?
Yes, the option was only for $1,000, but I transferred the title in May. So I took possession of the property in May.
Yeah.
And then I started working on the severance process.
Oh no! Like what I meant was like in your option contract, you'd have a set price to purchase it at, right? Did your appraisal come in like at a better rate than that, or was it very similar?
Oh, yes, but during the meantime, I worked on the house as well, so I converted that into a duplex.
Okay.
So previously the So previously the mortgage was on a big lot, and then later on, I ended up with the lot, empty lot, and a lot with a house. So they ported the mortgage from the full lot into the lot where the house was situated. So the lender was involved as well. And it came back as, I'll give you the numbers, the owner, he purchased it for $415, sorry, $405. I purchased for $430. And the appraisal came back as $640 for the lot where house was situated. Plus, I had a free and clear lot now.
That's awesome. So, did you keep the lot? What did you decide to do with the lot?
Yeah, I'm still holding that lot, and then see, maybe whether I can build it or I can sell it, who knows, like right now, as of current market. It's still valued at almost like $300,000
for the empty lot. That's awesome. So that's a great way to make some value out of thin air. Oh, so the procedure to do this, I assume you got to talk to the city, a survey. Is there anything more to that? Probably a lawyer or an attorney to register this whole thing. What's the procedure to do the severance?
Sure. First of all, like you have to file the application, and then any fee which you pay for the severance, even if your application is refused, you're not going to get that back. Okay. So there is a risk associated with that. I talked to various departments within the cities, and in fact, they gave me a plan that this is how you could do that. And then you have to involve the engineer, the architectural drawings, the surveyor as well. So you have to present a map. But all that money, it goes into the process, as I mentioned. It can lead up to almost like over $10,000. But that's a risk you're taking for that application. In my case, I used my own AutoCAD skills to create those drawings.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the
a little bit of savings there,
yeah. But my severance was in terms of the application, it was like almost $3,000. So I filed in the application, then you have to come up with the drawings. I did the drawing by myself, and then later on, your matter goes to the committee of adjustment meetings. So there is a certain period of time, they gave a notice period to all to everybody around, if there is some objection by somebody, and they can raise it with the city. So in my case, yes, there was a lot of objections.
But they still let it go through, obviously. So
yeah, it still went through, So I'm glad.
So how do you deal with those objections? Like, what's the process? Do you have to, listen to them, counter all those arguments, or what's the procedure here?
One is just an objection. Second is a deemed, application, for objection. So deemed application is there is a procedure, where they fill out the application form. There is a fee that goes with that, and then it goes to another meeting as well. So in my case, that it was not a deemed objection. However, somebody made a phone call to the city saying that we oppose this, and then the next day, what they have done is they wrote a letter to the city saying this is all profit driven and not so nice things about other. There are some other things I don't want to mention here, but they sent that application, and this gentleman actually he went to all the neighbors. He got that application, that paper signed by all the neighbors, and gave it to the city. So although I got the approval from the city, yes, the approval is a conditional approval. I got the approval. However, they were not making any decision because they said there is an objection. So at that time, I was really frustrated in a way that it was not a deemed objection. So I said, I don't think so. We should be basing everything on somebody who just mentioned something. So there has to be a proper procedures that needs to be followed. So let's decide on a day and a time. By that time, if we don't have the deemed objection, then the decision should be made in my favor. So the most challenge is bringing all the different parties within the city onto one table. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't sound like an easy procedure, but with all of this real estate, I think every time you're solving problems is where you're going to determine or gain the most money out of thin air. It's the solving people's problems and solving your own problems is really how you do all this.
Another thing is, as I mentioned, you have to involve your lawyer and you have to involve your lender as well. So your lender has to agree on that, and the lawyer is because the severed piece of land or any lot, that would have a different PIN number. So there is a lawyer involved for the title. The lender is involved. If the mortgage is involved, then the lender has to approve this one too. Okay. And another thing, once your application is approved, then you have an agreement. You have a contract with the city with some conditions associated with that. And there are certain conditions by various different departments because they circulate the application, that what other conditions are associated with that application. And once you have that list, then you have 1 year to fulfill those conditions. And if you are unable to do so, then they merge those together back as well. So all your effort goes waste.
What kind of conditions could they ask you for?
In my case, I had a swimming pool on the neighboring lot. The same lot. I always say neighboring lot. Now. So the swimming pool,
like an in-ground or an above-ground, like
there was an in-ground swimming pool.
Okay.
That I get rid of. And then there are slopes, various different slopes you have to maintain as well. Another thing is very important, that where would you position that lot line as well? That's very important as well. And that comes from, as I mentioned, architectural drawing, where it depends on how many openings. It depends on the gross opening area where you can position the lot line. So I got actually 2 approvals in one committee of adjustment meeting. One was to divide that lot. Second is where to position that line based on the gross opening area. Otherwise, for every single approval, you have to wait for 2-3 months, when there is a next committee of adjustment meeting is there. So all those little details, every project is different. But when you have a house on one of the lot, it becomes a little challenging as well, considering because you do want to keep that house if you want to keep that house. But if you want to demolish it, you want to,
start over.
2 different houses, then it's a different story.
Excellent. Is there a specific sort of land size that the city was looking for each lot to be? Like, was there a minimum that you had to be at?
Yes. So every city has different requirements as well.
Okay. Yeah. So it'd probably be different depending on.
Yeah. And also they want to know what can be built on that one. So you have to present a drawing, that what you want to do with that property as well, with that lot.
Okay.
So you have to create a building envelope on that, which actually matches with the neighborhood, because you cannot have a lane house where there is no lane house in the neighborhood.
Interesting. I never even thought about that part of it. So do you have to actually go buy some blueprints of a house to submit to them?
Based on city documents, there's all setback requirements are there.
Yeah.
So based on that setback requirements, I created one in AutoCAD and I presented to them. So it worked.
Yeah. So how did you learn this? It was just as you came, or did you have to do some training or something? How did you know how to do all this stuff?
There is no training. As I went along the process, meeting with different people, I came to know about all that stuff.
Gotcha. No,
it's like ask and you shall receive. It's like talking to a lot of people, and because not many people have experience in this one too. Usually there are big builders who are doing this, or like common people. I don't think so. They want to get involved in that. But I did it. So if somebody has question, feel free to reach out. I'm
that sounds great. And it looks like there's lots of opportunity too. Like you could probably just go search the MLS even and look for corner lots with those big backyards. I've seen them before, and I've thought about it myself, and I went, I wonder if I could cut that into another lot, and then I'm like, but I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's lots of corner lots. There's lots of corners.
Nowadays, I think city offers a consultation for a fee. So you end up spending maybe like $1,000, for initial consultation, but it's just $1,000 risk. At that time, whether your project has a chance to go forward or not, if your intention is severance.
That makes a lot of sense to do. I say that a lot of times with a lot of things. I hear about people that have made really bad decisions, and you just go, well, what did the appraiser say? Well, I didn't want to pay for the appraisal. I didn't want to pay for that. I didn't want to pay for that consultation. I'm like, sometimes it might save you a lot of money, and sometimes that small fee off the start might save you the $10,000 you just wasted, and they didn't get it approved, right? Cool. Well, that was a lot of great information, Harry. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, you can contact me, phone me, email me, or you can browse through my website as well. So you can reach me at 519-722-8519, and my email it's Harry Samby, my first name, last name, one word @gmail.com, or you can go to harrysamby.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show. That was great.
Thank you for having me.